It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the Lightning Talk, Harnessing Technology and Leadership to Accelerate Energy Innovation. I'm Samita Shah, Global Head of Industry Marketing for Energy and Utilities at AWS, and I'm also the founder of AWS Women Reinventing Energy, a volunteer-based affinity group established in 2022 by a passionate group of women and men. And our mission is to develop, advance, and recognize contributions from women and underrepresented groups across the energy and utilities industry. We believe that fostering inclusivity and amplifying diverse voices is essential in driving innovation and creating a more equitable future in energy. Over the years, we have worked relentlessly to highlight the challenges, successes, and contributions of these groups by coming together at different events and through speakerships and networking opportunities across various regions worldwide. Joining me today is Dalen Copeland, Vice President of Digital Transformation at EDF Renewables for North America, a company that is not only leading the way in renewable energy innovation, but also embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion into its mission of creating a sustainable energy future. As the energy industry evolves, the intersection of technology, leadership, and DE&I is more crucial than ever. EDFR has demonstrated how DE&I can be a key driver for innovation, business growth, and community impact. Their efforts go beyond rhetoric, whether it's implementing equitable hiring practices, offering inclusive benefits, or fostering a culture of belonging through their employee resource groups. Today, we'll explore how these efforts translate into actionable strategies that not only shape their workforce, but also influence the broader energy industry. So let me share some quick facts to frame our discussion here today. Women make up just about 29% of the renewables workforce and a mere 16% of leadership roles across energy industry. So at EDFR, women constitute 31% of all employees, which is already above the industry average. That's a great number in statistics. And that's complemented by intentional efforts to break barriers and create opportunities for underrepresented groups. These include explicit anti-discrimination policies, benefits like gender-affirming care, and a commitment to supplier diversity. These are powerful examples of how leadership and technology can converge to create impact. So Dalen, welcome to the Lightning Talk, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't we start with a quick introduction from you?
Sure. Hey everybody, my name is Dalen Copeland. As Samita mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Digital Technology for EDF Renewables. I've been with the company for about 18 years. So in a variety of different roles, I've had a pretty squiggly career path to land in a technology leadership role. I started as an attorney with our organization, and then I joined our rotational training program. I did a rotation in asset management, in program management, and then landed in operations and maintenance, where I ultimately ran the business development team and moved into sort of a strategic initiatives role, which picked up digital transformation a number of years ago, and then landed in a technology leadership role about a year and a half ago.
Thank you, Dalen. That's a very diverse background, I would say.
I represent some diversity all by myself.
That's awesome. So let's get started. EDFR operates across a variety of cultural and geographic contexts.
We do.
Can you share how the company ensures that its D&I strategies resonate locally while aligning with the global goals?
Yeah, so I think EDF Renewables North America has a very specific definition of diversity and what we're going after within the organization, and I think it's important to start there. So the way that we define diversity, equity, and inclusion is to create an intercultural workspace that celebrates all the various different dimensions of diversity within our organization and within our workforce. And so that looks at gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, veteran status, neurodiversity, right? Like it really tries to pick up the nuanced and complex landscape that is diversity within our organization and make sure we celebrate all of those aspects of our employees. So in order to do that, we have a couple of different ways that we look at how we're performing as an organization. So EDF Group at the global level has a global engagement survey that assesses or asks our employees to assess us on a diversity index, a series of questions that ask people how they're showing up and how we're showing up as an organization, and then we can look at those results year over year and also assess ourselves against industry benchmarks. So how are other people in our space doing and how are we performing against that? In EDF North America, we also have an employee engagement, an employee experience and DEI survey that we ask our employees. And so we ask how they feel about, can they show up at work as their authentic selves? Do they have a sense of belonging? Do they have a career progression that they see available to them? And are they getting access to meaningful work? We use all of that data to inform how we can structure initiatives and response actions to close those gaps in what the employees perceive about how we're showing up and whether we're walking the walk. In addition to that, when we talk about operating across the globe, right, in lots of different cultural aspects, I think there's some real fun things to explore there when you look at different cultures coming together to try to deliver business results. So one example I can give that EDFR has done on one of our global programs is we use something called the Hofstede Group Culture Index. So when we're kicking off a team or when we find a team is really struggling to come together and work across different cultural norms, this particular index looks at things like power distance, right? So how attached is a particular culture to hierarchy and where someone falls within the hierarchy? What is your time horizon for decision making? So are you a short-term time horizon culture or are you a longer-term time horizon culture? And how might that shape decisions that you make or your approach to decision making? And then it has a couple of other aspects. And so when you bring that to the teams that are trying to work together across different cultural dimensions, it can create a really nice space for people. It should never be used as a diagnosis. One of them's not wrong, one of them's not right? But if we're having a conversation with each other about my perspective is this, or where I come from, this is sort of how we think about these things, it creates a really nice space for teams to come together and figure out how to leverage each other's strengths. So yeah, I think that we look at those things. Another example of where working across cultural contexts can be tricky in the technology space. For instance, in North America, we had someone come to us as an ally and wanting to demonstrate their allyship and said, hey, can we look at putting gender pronouns into the Microsoft tenant?
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. Which for me, as a North American woman, says, okay, sure, happy to look into that. And so we took that request forward, but when we looked at how it works, now EDFR North America has gender pronouns in our signature blocks, right? You have an option to declare your gender pronouns in your signature block, but this they actually wanted to put in the tenant itself. So we took a look at it and we realized that our tenant is global, right? And so if you make that change for North America, where that request seemed perfectly normal, you had to think through what are all the other countries and operating contexts that use the same tenant. And what we thought through, ultimately, was that there are some places where we operate where maybe gender's not a spectrum, maybe it's not okay to identify as anything other than your biologically assigned sex at birth, right? And so if we put that in there, we might open people up to criticism and maybe even make somebody unsafe. And so we ultimately had to decline the request, but it took us a while to think through all the ramifications of what allyship looks like in North America versus across the globe. And I think those are just some of the fun things that come with thinking through diversity and technology across lots of different cultural contexts.
Yeah, these are great examples of initiatives that are deployed there. And then these are also great strategies that organizations can use across the industry as well. So great examples. The next question that I have is, statistics highlight significant representation gaps in the energy sector, including for women and other underrepresented groups. What steps do you believe conscious leadership should take to address these disparities and drive meaningful change?
Yeah, so I really love the use of the language conscious leadership there. I think I would sort of advocate for a two-pronged approach. The first of which, and this is just my personal approach, so the first of which really starts with consciousness,
yes.
right? So how self-aware am I as a leader? Do I understand what my implicit bias might be, what my unconscious biases might be? Do I understand how my upbringing and my personal life experiences might have shaped how I show up in the world and how I view other people in the world? And if you can bring that self-awareness along with some curiosity and some humility to leadership, it becomes a little bit easier, I think, to create a space that feels, more inclusive to others. And if you can ask for grace, right, and be willing to say, I don't know how to do this, but we need to do some hard things together, so what does that look like? I think that really goes a long way. And then the second prong of that for me is really data. So where is the data, right?
Yeah.
Are we looking at our entire employee talent pipeline from end to end and understanding where we see drop-offs for underrepresented minorities? Do we understand, do we have cultural data? Do we have engagement survey data? What is the data telling us about what's going on within the organization? And how do we use that to shape intentional actions, both at the individual, team, and organization level?
I love the fact that you said conscious leadership starts with conscious, and it starts with you.
Yeah.
That's a really good thing to think about. So these are good examples. Can you shed some lights on how you think technology can play a role in creating opportunities and addressing challenges to advance inclusion and equity?
Yeah, I can. So I think the sort of intersection of diversity, equity, and inclusion and technology presents a little bit of a Spider-Man issue, right? With great power and great opportunity comes great responsibility. So because I'm a lawyer by training, I'm going to start with the problems first. So I think when we hear all these really great things about AI and you think what a sort of amazing opportunity that is, I think it also makes me nervous when we talk about ethical and responsible AI, the responsibility to understand how we may have coded bias in and how learning models are going to learn off implicit bias perhaps that we don't even know is there, and how does that get extrapolated much faster than we're prepared for out into the world, right? How does that gap between what the model believes is appropriate based on what they saw in their learning set that we may not understand is there, and how does that start to show up? I think those are some challenges that lay ahead of us with technology. I think some of the opportunities are also really great though, right? So we know that things like a hybrid working model, which is largely enabled by technology, right? Really benefit underrepresented groups, caregivers, lower earning workers, all really benefit from being able to work somewhere else. EDF Renewables is located in San Diego. I love living in San Diego, but it's not a cheap place to live. And so, some of our employees, it's much easier for them to live in other locations and remote work in or hybrid work in for us. And that makes a ton of sense. We get access to a much broader talent pool, and we can make some supportive choices for our employees who have caregiving responsibilities or who need to live somewhere other than San Diego and pay the sunshine tax. I also think there's lots of really cool opportunities out there to think about how technology can overcome certain kinds of work style differences and things that might have prevented people from being able to fully participate before, whether that's a preference or a particular diversity component. So our UX designers at EDF Renewables do fun things like they review our custom apps and our SaaS apps for ADA color blindness capabilities, right? And any other sort of things about the way the software appears that might be difficult for people with different kinds of neurodiversity. So that's a really fun example of how technology can be maybe not great, but we can leverage it and think about all the people with how they consume information and how they like to work and whether there's the ability to use technology to benefit them. I also think when we think about things like talent acquisition, there's a lot of information out there that says the same resume, if it has a name that is clearly gender identified or clearly ethnically identified, may face a less likely chance to move to the next round than sort of a standard white male named resume. So do we have technology, do we want to apply technology to remove all of those things that might trigger implicit bias, right, as part of our talent review and talent acquisition pipeline? All of the things that exist in talent that let us do things like start to visually describe images to people who might be visually challenged. Do we, the voice to text, things that allow people who have ADHD or different kinds of neurodiversity to work at different times, in different ways, in different modalities. Those are all really great opportunities that technology brings to allow people, as they are, to show up at work and provide all of their brilliance and all of their value to the organization in a way that we couldn't have conceived, 20 to 40 years ago.
Yeah, just thinking about all the technology that we have today, and there is no excuse for, not being DE&I conscious and not leading with conscious leadership as well.
Yeah.
So we have come to the end of our session. Thank you so much, Dalen, for sharing these insights, and from conscious leadership to inclusive technology and hybrid work that you just mentioned. Looks like EDFR demonstrates how innovation can drive not only sustainability but also equity. So to everyone here, today's discussion reminds us that the future of energy is not just about advancing technology, it's about ensuring that progress uplifts everyone. So that is important to always remember. So let's take these lessons forward as we work together to accelerate energy innovation and inclusivity. So I encourage you, everyone, to talk to Dalen after this session and learn more about EDFR's initiatives. And I am more than happy to share more information on women reinventing energy as well. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samita. Thank you, Dalen. Nice session.